If you have fought crabgrass in your lawn for years, you have probably heard the same promise over and over. Spread this one organic product, and the crabgrass disappears forever. The product is corn gluten meal, and the story behind it is true, surprising, and a lot more useful than the headlines make it sound. But here is the honest version, the one most videos will not tell you. Corn gluten can suppress crabgrass. It can feed your lawn at the same time. But it only works inside a narrow window, and only if you get 3 things exactly right. Get those 3 things wrong, and you will spend money fertilizing the very weeds you were trying to stop. So stay with me, because by the end of this, you will understand what corn gluten actually does, why it sometimes fails, and how to give it the best possible chance on your lawn. Let me start with the discovery, because it is genuinely strange. Back in the late 1980s, a researcher named Dr. Nick Christians at Iowa State University was studying lawn diseases. He was not looking for a weed killer at all, but he noticed something odd. Wherever corn gluten meal had been spread, grass seeds were failing to sprout, and the young roots simply would not develop. That accident turned into decades of research into corn gluten as a natural pre-emergent. And here's the part that matters for you. Corn gluten meal is a byproduct of the corn milling process. It is what is left after the starch and the syrup are pulled out of the corn kernel. It is rich in protein, and it contains compounds called dipeptides. Researchers believe those dipeptides are what stop young roots from forming as a seed germinates. The seed can still sprout, but the root cannot establish. And without a strong root, the seedling dries out and dies. That is the entire mechanism. It is not a poison. It is a protein that interferes with root formation at one very specific moment in a weed's life. Now, before I go further, I want to be honest with you about something I'm holding back. There are 3 details that decide whether corn gluten works or completely fails on your lawn: the exact soil temperature window for your region, the precise application rate per 1,000 square feet, and the multi-year stacking strategy that turns a mediocre result into a real one. I have put all 3, written out plainly with the numbers and the timing, into a reference guide for this lawn. You can find it linked in the description and in the pinned comment below, but you do not need the guide to follow along, because I am going to explain the core of how this works right now. So let us keep going. The single most important thing about corn gluten is timing. Corn gluten only works as a pre-emergent. That means it has to be in the soil before the crabgrass seeds germinate. Apply it too early, and the effect fades before the weeds even wake up. Apply it too late, and the crabgrass is already rooted, and now you're just feeding it nitrogen. Iowa State describes this as a window of opportunity, and the window is real. Crabgrass germinates when soil temperatures climb into a specific range in early spring. Your job is to get the corn gluten down and lightly watered in just before that happens. This is why the same product gives one neighbor a beautiful lawn and another neighbor a yard full of weeds. It is almost never the product. It is the timing. The second factor is the rate, and this is where most people quietly fail. Corn gluten is not like a synthetic pre-emergent where a thin scattering does the job. To get any meaningful suppression, university and extension sources point to a heavy rate spread evenly across the lawn. Underapply it, and you get a fertilizer, not a weed suppressant. And because corn gluten is roughly 10% nitrogen by weight, that is the catch and the gift at the same time. At a low rate, it simply greens up your lawn. At the correct rate, it greens up your lawn and suppresses germinating crabgrass. That dual action, feeding and suppressing in one pass, is the real reason people love it. The third factor is the one almost nobody mentions. Corn gluten is not a one-and-done miracle. Honest university research shows mixed results in any single season, especially where weed pressure is heavy. Some studies could not reproduce the strongest early claims at all. What the more favorable long-term data suggests is that consistent, correct use across multiple growing seasons is where the real improvement shows up. You're not buying an instant fix. You're starting a multi-year program that slowly tilts the balance in your lawn's favor. A thick, well-fed lawn is itself one of the best defenses against crabgrass because dense turf shades the soil and crowds out germinating weed seeds. Corn gluten helps on both fronts at once. It suppresses some germination, and the nitrogen thickens the turf that prevents the next generation. So let me be very clear about expectations, because I respect your time and your money. Corn gluten will not erase crabgrass forever from a single spring application. It is not stronger than a synthetic pre-emergent, and it will struggle on a lawn that is already overrun. But used correctly, at the right rate, at the right moment, year after year, it is a legitimate organic tool that feeds your lawn while reducing crabgrass pressure over time. That is a real promise. And it is one you can actually keep. Now here's how the pieces fit together in practice. You wait for the soil to approach crabgrass germination temperature in early spring. You apply corn gluten evenly at the full recommended rate, not a light dusting. You water it in lightly to settle it into contact with the soil. Then you let the surface dry, because that dry period is part of what stresses the young weed roots. You avoid applying right before heavy rain, which can wash it away before it works. And critically, you do not apply it where you're also trying to grow new grass from seed, because corn gluten cannot tell the difference between a weed seed and a desirable grass seed. It stops both. That last point traps a lot of people, and it is exactly the kind of detail that turns a good idea into a frustrating spring. There is one more thing worth knowing, and it is part of why this product has such a loyal following. Corn gluten is genuinely low risk to have around. It is the same material used as a protein supplement in livestock and pet food. It does not poison your soil, and it does not leave a chemical residue behind. For families with kids and dogs running across the lawn, that peace of mind is a real part of the appeal. And it is not only crabgrass that it can suppress. The same pre-emergent effect has been reported against other small-seeded annual weeds, including foxtail, pigweed, and even dandelion seedlings. The key word there is seedlings. Remember, it only ever acts on seeds at the moment of germination. It does absolutely nothing to a weed that is already established with a mature root system. So if your lawn is already covered in grown crabgrass, corn gluten this season will not remove it. You pull or manage the mature weeds, and you use corn gluten to stop the next generation from ever taking hold. That distinction, acting on the seed and not the standing plant, is the heart of understanding this product. So those are the fundamentals: the mechanism, the timing, the rate, and the multi-year mindset. If you only remember one thing, remember this: corn gluten rewards precision and punishes guessing. For the exact soil temperature window for your climate zone, the precise pounds per 1,000 square feet, and the multi-year stacking plan that makes it actually pay off, everything is laid out step by step in the reference guide linked below. If this helped you see corn gluten clearly for what it really is and not the hype, do me one favor. Subscribe to this channel where every video is built the same way: real agronomy, honest expectations, and methods you can actually trust on your own lawn. I will see you in the next one.